Welcome to the IG. My name is Macky Hall, and recently I did a video focusing on isometric type design. In that video, I talked about how by using appearance and transform, you can nail the 3D look way better than using 3D tools. I like using this technique because you can nail the colors. Check out the basic cyan and magenta in these models. Using 3D, it just doesn't work. But what about shading? 3D gets that. With this technique, you can nail the colors and get the shading. By the way, that's what we're building today. All right, let's get started, and be sure to check out some radical level ups at the end of this video. Let's go. All right, before we get started, I want to mention that we are using the Essentials Classic Workspace. To switch on over to the Essentials Classic Workspace, all we need to do is go to the top right-hand corner, select Switch Workspace, and select Essentials Classic. Now, with that being said, if you're using a different workspace, by all means, go for it. I use Essentials Classic because it's the workspace that's best for me and most suits my work. With that being said, use any workspace you like. We'll be sure to guide you along the way. Next thing I want to mention is that we are turning smart guides off. I almost always use smart guides. However, in this case, since we're working with single elements, there's no real need. To turn smart guides off, all you need to do is go to View, Smart Guides, and deselect that, or of course select Control U. Next thing I want to mention is we're going to be using the bottom center of our page to highlight hotkeys, key command recommendations, and tips and tricks. Now, with that being said, we're building this piece on a PC. If you're using an Apple or Mac device, every time we make the Control key recommendation, use Command instead. Again, Command equals Control. All right, let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is we are going to add depth from the top left. With that in mind, we're using the Bayland typeface. To find that, all you need to do is go to fontswan.com/Bayland-font. Of course, you could go to fontswan.com and then just do a search for Bayland. That'll work just fine as well. Type size is 200 points. The effect that we've got is a warp arc effect at 10%. To access the warp arc, all you need to do is go to Effect, Warp, and Arc right here. We also have a 10% rotate. All you need to do to enact the rotate is select your piece just like that, double click on your rotate button, and rotate it 10%. And now that we've got that out of the way, let's make sure our type selection is still selected, and then let's go ahead and open up our appearance window. You can do that in a number of ways. One way to do it is to go to your right toolbar and click on the appearance icon. I'm going to close that. Another way to do it is to go to Window, Appearance, and click that. Or of course, you can select Shift F6. Now that the appearance window is open, let's go ahead and add our fill type. This is a piece of cake. All you need to do is go to the bottom left-hand corner, select Add New Fill, and click on that. Once you see your new fill, all you're going to need to do is click on your fill color and select CMYK Magenta. We're going to use that color as our fill. Once your fill is selected, all you need to do is click anywhere on your artboard to deselect. Now, while we don't want a visible stroke on this piece, to get the highlighted side and dark side, we are going to use our stroke function. With our piece still selected, let's go to the bottom left-hand corner of our appearance window and click Add New Stroke twice. That will add new strokes directly in front of your fill. Now notice that the stroke for the letters is going above the fill. That's no problem at all. All we need to do is select our fill, click and drag it above our strokes just like that. And you'll notice that our fill is now in front of the strokes. Now let's go ahead and zoom in to our type so we can get a closer look. All we need to do is hit Control+ a few times and we can get in pretty tight. Once we've got that, let's go ahead and select our top stroke and click on our fill color. Once that's selected, all you need to do is select CMYK Cyan. That's going to be our highlight depth color. Let's go ahead and deselect by clicking anywhere on our artboard. Now, if you want to select a custom color, piece of cake, all you need to do is hold your Shift key and click on that same stroke color. You can do the same thing with your fill. Then either enter your RGB numbers. Of course, you can enter your hex code, or if you want, you can select your color from the RGB spectrum at the bottom. With that being said, we're set on our color. Let's click anywhere on our artboard to deselect the color palette. With that in mind, let's go ahead and edit our dark stroke color. In order to do that, all we need to do is once again select our dark stroke, click on that stroke color, and then let's go for C100, M95, Y5. Let's click on that. Let's go ahead and click anywhere on our artboard to deselect. Now note that you can't see your dark stroke color. The reason for that, it is located directly beneath your light stroke. Now with that in mind, we don't need the whole thickness of that stroke at one point. Instead, we need it at 0.5 points. Now one way to do it is you could just arrow your stroke thickness down to 0.5 just like that. Another way to do it is to select your stroke thickness, double click on it, and enter in 0.5 just like that. Hit return, and your stroke will thin out just like that. Now that our strokes have been thinned out, we're ready to add our magic. So we can see it a little bit more clearly. Let's zoom in. Let's go ahead and select our top stroke first, and let's transform it just a little bit. The way we do that is with our stroke selected, we're going to select Add New Effect, Distort and Transform, Transform. Now, once the Transform Effect window comes up, we're going to change the movement of our stroke horizontally to negative 0.25. That's going to shift it to the left ever so slightly. We tab off it, you can see it shift. You can actually see the dark stroke beneath it. Now, vertically, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to shift it negative 0.25 as well. We'll tab off of that. And you can see it shifted vertically as well, negative 0.25. Now, when you shift elements in a negative direction, horizontally, it's going to shift to the left, and then vertically, it is going to shift upwards. Now, we don't need to make any copies. We've done all we need to do with the transform effect for this stroke layer. Now, let's go ahead and select our bottom stroke, and let's go ahead and do the same thing. Let's go to Effects, Distort and Transform, Transform. Now with our bottom stroke, we're only going to shift it horizontally negative 0.25, just like this. Let's tab off of it, and notice that our bottom stroke shifted just a little bit. Let's go ahead and click OK. And let's zoom out. That's all the individual effects we need to do with our strokes. Now let's go ahead and change the type as a whole. In order to do that, all we need to do is select our type as a whole, just like that. Let's go back to our effects panel, select Distort and Transform, Transform, and then let's go ahead and move everything. The way we're going to do that is we're going to select our move one more time and shift it to the left, again, negative 0.25. And then vertically, we want it to be at approximately a 60-degree angle. So we're going to shift it negative 0.15, just like that. Let's go ahead and tab off of it. Now this time around, instead of just closing the transform effect window, what we're going to do is we're going to add 150 copies. This gives our type depth. Check it out. I'm going to write 150 in. Let's tab off of it with our preview selected right at the bottom left here, and check it out. All right, that's exactly what we want. Let's go ahead and click off of it. Let's grab our selection tool, and let's deselect our type just like that. That looks really good. Notice how you can see the cyan prominently. You get just a hint of that dark stroke in the fill. Now, what if you want more of that dark stroke to add shadow? Well, that's a piece of cake. All you need to do is select your type one more time. Let's go ahead and open up our bottom stroke and click on Transform. Once that's open, let's go ahead and change our horizontal movement from 0.25 to 0.5. Let's go ahead and tab off of it and notice what happens to our type straight away. That's a little bit more like it. Let's go ahead and click OK. Let's go ahead and deselect our type. And there you go. Now, a couple of quick notes. Now, what if you want to change the angle of that depth? Well, it's actually a piece of cake. All you need to do is select your type and then go back to your type overall. Let's scroll to the bottom and select the transform for the overall type. Once we've got that, all we need to do is change the vertical or horizontal movement to our taste. For example, if I wanted to make it a 45-degree shift, all we need to do is we'd select our vertical transform and change the movement to 0.25. This will set our shift at 45 degrees. We'll click OK. Let's deselect and notice what we've done there. Now that shift is at 45 degrees. Now I like it the other way, so I'm going to undo by pressing Control Z. And there you go. I think we're good there. Now, one last note. Notice that we're using editable type. That's really good because we can change what we're saying. We've got the word wonder. Let's go ahead and grab our type tool. Let's click anywhere on that type. Let's select all of it by double clicking. Notice that the type is highlighted. And let's go ahead and change the word wonder to insane. Grab our selection tool. Let's go ahead and deselect. And there you go. Just like that. We've added depth with a fill from the top left. Now, what about adding depth going to the bottom right? Well, let's do that right away. Notice before we get started that we're using the Great Lakes typeface. To get that, all you need to do is go to fontsquirrel.com/fonts/Great Lakes NF. Better yet, just go to fontsquirrel.com and do a search for Great Lakes. Now, type size is 200 points, and we've got a 12% shear and rotate. So how do we make that shear and rotate? Well, it's a piece of cake. All you need to do is select the type, go to Window, Transform, or Shift F8, and then add your shear right here, and then add your rotate right there. Since it's already done, we don't need to do anything. I'm going to go ahead and close this window. Now that we've got that done, let's go ahead and apply our effect. It's almost exactly the same as last time. So before we get started, let's go ahead and make sure our word stoked is selected. It already is, so we're not going to do anything with that. Let's go ahead and open up our appearance window. We could open it up on our right toolbar just like that. Or of course, we could open it up through Window, Appearance, or Shift F6. Once we've got that selected, let's go a little quickly here. Let's keep the word stoked selected. Let's click on our fill at the bottom left-hand corner. Let's select our fill. Let's click on our fill color, and let's select CMYK Magenta. Notice the color changes straight away. Let's click anywhere on our artboard to deselect. Now we're going to do something different this go around. Instead of just having it look like it's filled, we're going to add a thick stroke around this typeface. Not too much change to do. All we need to do is add 2 strokes. The way we do that is we go to the bottom left-hand corner of our appearance window, and let's click Add New Stroke twice. Once again, notice that our stroke appears above our fill. Not a problem at all. All we need to do to fix that is let's go ahead and select our fill and drag it above our strokes, just like that. Once that's done, let's go ahead and increase the thickness of both of our strokes to 6 points. Let's click on our top stroke and let's arrow it up to 6. That looks pretty good right there. Let's click on our bottom stroke. This time around, let's just drag across the number just like that. Write 6, hit return, and we are good to go right there. Now that we've got that done, let's go ahead and change the stroke color. The way we do that, piece of cake once again, is we select our top stroke. Let's click and release. And let's go ahead once again, select CMYK Cyan, just like that. Notice how our stroke color changes. Let's click anywhere on our artboard to deselect. Once again, if you want to select a custom color, all you need to do, hold your shift key down when you click on the stroke color. Now with that being said, let's go ahead and add our dark stroke color, or that would be our shadow as well. How do you do that? Piece of cake. All you need to do is select your stroke, click on the stroke color, and once again, we are going to use C100M95 Y5. Let's go ahead and click on that. Let's click anywhere on our artboard to deselect. And notice once again, you can't see it. Why? Because it's directly beneath our cyan stroke. Now that we've got that done, let's go ahead and do our transform effects. Since this is going to the bottom right, our numbers are going to be different, but our technique is going to be almost exactly the same. Check it out. First thing we're going to do is let's go ahead and zoom into our word to get a better look. Looks pretty good right there. First thing we're going to do is let's go ahead and select our top stroke. Let's go to Effects, Distort and Transform, just like that. Once the window comes up, all we need to do is do a horizontal shift to 0.5 points. Just drag across, right 0.5, we'll tab off it. Notice that our stroke shifts to the right by half a point, just like that. That's all we need to do with our top stroke. Let's click OK, piece of cake, and let's select our bottom stroke and do the same thing. We're going to select Effects, Distort and Transform, and then with our dark stroke, let's change the movement to 0.25 for both horizontal and vertical. That's all we need to do right there. Notice the stroke movement in your type. Let's go ahead and click OK. That's exactly what we want right there. Let's go ahead and bring our entire page into view. There you go. Now let's go ahead and add the depth. How do we do that? Once again, all we need to do is select our type just like that. Let's select Effects, Distort and Transform, Transform, and let's enter in the following coordinates. Let's horizontally shift 0.25. Again, that's going to shift it horizontally to the right, 1/4 of a point. Vertically, let's shift it down 0.15. Let's tab off it. Now this time around, we are going to make copies. Once again, let's go ahead and add 150 copies. Let's make sure our preview button is selected. Let's write 150. Let's tab off it and note what happens. Let's go ahead and click OK. Let's deselect our type. And that is a pretty good look. However, I want that dark color or that shadow to be a little bit more prominent. How do we do that? First thing we need to do is select our type just like that. Make sure it's selected. Then let's go ahead and select our dark stroke just like that. Let's click on Transform. And let's change the vertical shift from 0.25 to 0.5. Let's see how that looks. Let's tab off of it. Note that that dark shadow becomes that much more prominent. What if I want it even more prominent? Let's go ahead and shift this from 0.5 to 0.75 and have a look at what it looks like. That looks pretty good. Now you can see the shift very, very prominently. With that being said, I like a 0.5 vertical shift. It just works best with the piece. Let's tab off of that. Looks great right there. Let's go ahead and click OK. Let's deselect our piece. And that looks fantastic. Once again, if we want to make any changes to the word stoke, piece of cake. What if we wanted to change that depth to the bottom right to a 45-degree depth? Piece of cake. All you need to do once again is select a type. Make sure you scroll down and select the transform for the entire shape. And once we get that, let's change our vertical shift from 0.15 to 0.25. That matches the top shift, and that will make it a 45-degree shift. Let's tab off it, see what it looks like. And there you go. Let's click OK. Let's deselect. That looks all right, but with that being said, I like the other shift instead. That was more or less a 60-degree shift. I'm going to hit Undo or Control Z, and that takes it back to where it was. One last thing, because we're working with type, if we want to change the word itself, all we need to do is grab our type tool, double click on the type, and change our word to whatever we want. In this case, let's go radical. Let's grab our selection tool. Let's deselect. That does look pretty radical, but with that being said, I like the other word a little better. So once again, I'm going to hit Control Z to undo. Let's grab our selection tool, make sure it's deselected by clicking anywhere on the artboard. And there you go. We've got nothing else to do. And with that being said, we are done. Nice job. Now combine this effect and the measurements included to come up with some really cool Illustrator art of your own. With that being said, if you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments section below. Otherwise, throw me a like. I'd really appreciate that. Otherwise, subscribe. I'd appreciate that just a little bit more. We'll see you next time. Peace.